Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Stand Up Speakeasy. I am your host, Seth and every episode I bring a comic from all over the country and we talk about their comedy during so far. And I was hoping to do this while going on tour, but the whole world shut down and I couldn't interview comics because there wasn't any shows. But this is great because I can get and have lengthy conversations with them instead of just 6 or 7 minute talks with them. So without further ado, coming to the stage all the way from Louisiana is Seth Hartley. Hey, Seth, how are you?
Good, Seth. How are you doing? Our names are very similar, so I like that.
Indeed, same here. I'm like, that's pretty neat. Like, a lot of times people call me Seth, or they just mispronounce it completely, and I'm like, all right, I'll just accept anything. Call me Shrek if you have to. But
That's awesome. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you're the youngest of three kids. I'm like the youngest of two, and you were born and raised in Louisiana. And what was it like growing up in Louisiana, in Baton Rouge?
I loved it. I mean, it was especially for sports. I played sports growing up. Played baseball. I played baseball in college a little bit. So growing up around sports was great. Comedy was interesting because when I was 15, I actually learned about improv, which was from the family dinner, which now I'm a part of. So it was very cool. So I got to have that, and I got to have those guys around, which was great. And I mean, it's a smaller scene, but I've moved around, and it's an honest scene. I'll say that much. I think when it comes to stand up, Baton Rouge, whenever they laugh if it's good, and if it's not, you sit there. But so I enjoyed it. Now I'm back. So I've moved away, but I'm back. I've been back since November. So I was gone for about 5.5, 6 years. So it's been fun being back home.
Absolutely. You always go back home. I plan on going back home into Colorado here in a little bit. So
Where in Colorado did you live?
I was born in Boulder, lived in Longmont, and moved down to Pueblo for a good 20 years from the last part of my elementary years all the way to my college years. And then I moved out to LA and moved out to Florida, and it's fun.
Yeah.
So, indeed. And I know that you were moved to Colorado for a little bit. And what part of Colorado did you live in?
I was living in Denver, and I was working in Golden, so I was right in the mix. I didn't realize it was the cool place to move until I moved there, and I already knew a lot of people.
Nice. Indeed. I know Golden quite well because of the Coors factory and stuff there. And
oh yeah.
Yep. I've never been, but I hear they have really good tours. I don't drink or anything, but it seems like a really cool place to go on tour. And
it was always packed. Whenever I went to go, I don't think I ever got to make it as well. I think I tried a few times, and they said they had tours full up for the day. And I didn't think about like a Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon that a lot of people are going to check out Coors, but I guess I was wrong.
Absolutely, indeed. And so you have a brother and a sister, and you all went to Bishop Sullivan before heading to college. And what were you like as a student?
So growing up, I got picked on quite a lot. So that was kind of where my comedic style came from, and it kind of quit in high school, and I started doing stand-up in high school. So my sister was very studious, my brother was very quiet, and I kind of came through like a wrecking ball. I just Miley Cyrus my way through high school. once I realized that you could stop getting picked on if you were just clever enough to make that other person feel uncomfortable or the other people laugh, I think that kind of really changed it for me. That was the first laugh I got that wasn't at me. It was like with me. It was pretty nice. So that happened in high school. So that was a pretty fun time.
Indeed. I totally know the feeling. Like I was bullied a lot too. And then when I started using reading the Your Mama jokes and memorizing them, I would, share it with all the students and they would just laugh and I was no longer bullied. So it's fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Mine started with little Johnny jokes in the 7th grade was where it initially started, but I didn't get my own personal laugh. And that was the changing moment when I got my own personal, when I wasn't repeating. But I learned so many little Johnny jokes. It's ridiculous. Thank heavens for the internet during that time.
Indeed, most definitely. And you mentioned earlier that you were in sports and you pitched for 2 years at LSU Shreveport, and you were plagued by injury, and that's why you had to hang up your gloves. And what were your baseball years like? The good, the bad, and the ugly.
I wasn't expecting to go to college and play baseball because my senior year of high school, I actually got hit in the face and broke my whole face with the baseball. So didn't get to play, wasn't expecting it, got this end of the summer. I actually had the flu when I went to try out for LSU Shreveport. So I was a pitcher and I was throwing very not hard. And the coach said, I think, I don't think you're right for us. And I said, hold on 1 second, just hold on. And I went behind the bullpen and threw up everything that I had in my body because I was had such a fever. And I threw a few pitches and they took a chance on me. So I moved up to Shreveport, Louisiana, which is about 4 hours north of Baton Rouge, where I'm from and where I live now. And I actually started my own improv group there. Once I got hurt, I started my own improv group because I liked comedy so much. And I realized that if I couldn't do baseball because my knee just kept, basically the entire time I was in college, I was hurt. Day one. So I realized very quickly that I was going to need to do something else to spend my time with. And luckily I still had the scholarship at the time. So I started an improv group and just started practicing. And I wanted to get better at comedy because my body, I mean, you can do comedy with your face and your voice, and you can't play baseball with just your voice. As long as I have a voice, I can still do comedy, but can't play sports with what God gave me, not anymore.
Absolutely, indeed. Like I wasn't much of an athlete. I was more like a gym class hero, and so it was like my parents made me work throughout my entire high school years to keep me out of trouble because there was a lot of gangs at the time. So it's just like, well, after school, do your homework and come to work. And I was like, all right, that's fine. So I was the dishwasher.
What's your gym class game? What'd you like to play in gym? Were you a dodgeball guy?
I was surprisingly good at being a baseball catcher. Like my friend, I call him Cruise Missile because he played baseball, and he would be the pitcher, and like I would catch every single one of like his throws, and he would like throw fastballs. I'm like, how is this making my glove? Like this is insane. Like and I was good at being goofy playing flag football, and that's about it. Yep.
Nothing wrong with flag. I love flag football.
Indeed. How about yourself? What were your favorite gym class sports?
Kickball. Kickball is the best. You get to hit people with a ball. I mean, kind of like dodgeball, but because I love baseball and I love hitting people with stuff, and so you combine that, and then it was just the perfect sport. And at the time, I got lucky. I went through puberty pretty early, just in terms of size. So I was a lot bigger than a lot of the other kids. So that naturally, I didn't have very much skill. It was kind of like there was legs and arms going everywhere. I didn't look good doing what I was doing, but I just had so much mass behind it that it worked. It worked out.
Indeed. I was like, always got chose last, and like my buddy would always be one of the captains, so he'd always make sure that I was on his team. So I was like, oh, you don't feel as bad anymore as the other not so great gym students.
No, so. It goes to show you that in real life, it's who you know. You know what I mean? It's always who you know.
Absolutely, indeed. And you finished off at LSU with a bachelor's in marketing. And what were your college years like, academic wise?
So once I got hurt in baseball, I actually tutored the whole baseball team. So I was a team tutor. So I did pretty well in school. Tests to me aren't hard because I don't think the person who's writing the test wants you to fail. And once I realized that, it was like, oh, I don't think that. Now, some teachers you have are really trying to trick you, and something happened in their life. Someone peed in their Cheerios at some point, and they just got upset about it. So there were those teachers for the most part, because my girlfriend now, she's a teacher, and they really do want you to succeed. So whenever you have that in mind, whenever for me, when I separated that, I thought the school was there to like bludgeon me, because there's a certain point when you're a kid when the teacher just hates me. They whatever. Like, no, the teacher hates their life. They have so much more they have to worry about. They're not concerned with you. So it was, I liked school. It was good. Although I didn't like, when I was in marketing, it switched to social media. And you and I were talking a little bit before, I'm really bad at social media. So when I started college, it was traditional marketing where it was more kind of advertising even. And then whenever I got towards the end of college, it was a lot more social media and doing that sort of thing. And that's always escaped me. So I went into sales afterward, and that's where I make money so I can try to do comedy. Because you're not the most money-making endeavor.
Most definitely. When I majored in communications, and it was like part of the whole, communications, deal. It was like journalism and audio visual stuff and radio and TV and marketing and PR was all in it too. And so I'm like, it's pretty neat how they all work together like that.
Yeah.
Just it's a big old, like a soup, if you will. There's a celery and the carrots and all that stuff. It just mixes quite well. And so one thing leads to another, and they all work together. It's pretty neat. So
it's a good That's a good analogy. Are you working to be a professor? Like, guys, join my class. I'll make you a nice PR soup.
I'm thinking about it. Well, I if I get my master's, but if I become like I could be like a teacher of some sort. But maybe in like later on down the road when COVID goes away and I can teach in person. I don't like my pals are
Yeah.
teachers over Zoom and over the
Teaching in person
website
is
and
fun.
much easier. But I'm afraid that what you said about teachers hating their lives. I'm like maybe I should stick to comedy. I hate my life already. No, I'm not kidding. I just
Exactly.
I
You
don't
want to
want to
go from
amplify
one of those ropes to the next one. Yeah, that's
it.
the truth.
Indeed. And so in your 20s, you moved around like I did in my 20s. You moved from Denver to Memphis. And what are your favorite memories from Denver to Memphis?
Oh, Denver is my people out there. I have my very best. So this shirt, it's chill. So my friend Victoria, shout out V Card. She gave me that for Christmas, and we shop presents only from thrift stores when we give stuff to each other because both of us are big thrift store shoppers. Like everything you see, even this little poster, pretty much everything I have is all thrift store just because it's too much fun. So I miss that about Denver. Miss the people. I used to sell cars, which you'd think is just signing your life away to the devil, but I loved it. I mean, I loved the people that I worked with. We just had a lot of fun. And then Memphis, not as much liking. I didn't enjoy it here as much. Memphis, I love Gibson's Donuts. Shout out Gibson's Donuts. Best donuts. Been voted, I think, #1 donut in the United States several times. They're delicious. I love them. Elvis's house is cool. It's not as big as you think because now everybody has giant billion-dollar mansions. I mean, Elvis's house is just like some nice house in your neighborhood that somehow you pay $90 to go walk through. It's but I did. They had good food, but I mean, most of Memphis comedy was great. I'll say that much. I loved Memphis comedy. They had a lot of brewery shows, which were a lot of fun, and they brought a lot of people. And Memphis built themselves a very good culture for that. So that's one main thing I'll say about Memphis is that their comedy scene was awesome.
Wow, that's awesome. Because I plan on like living in 12 cities next year, like a month each in the Central Time Zone, and
Yeah,
like I'm just baiting on Baton Rouge or New Orleans as my Louisiana stop, and I'm
yeah,
definitely stopping in Memphis because I interviewed Mo Alexander and he was such a great guest.
yeah.
And like my buddy Charlie McMullen, he was my roast master in Pueblo, but he moved to Memphis for a little while,
Yeah.
and he does all my artwork for my fests and stuff. And so I'm like, they speak highly of Memphis in their comedy scene too. So they have
Yeah,
really good barbecue too. So I definitely
yeah.
need to check it out. And so
Driver.
most definitely. So you're currently in Baton Rouge, and what do you love about Baton Rouge?
Uh Everything. I mean, my family's here, my girlfriend's here. I mean, I moved back here so she and I could move in together. So now I kind of feel like an adult for the first real time because before, when you're just traveling all the time and you're not ever at home, you don't really have a home set. But I've got my family down here, and the family dinner, the improv group. I mean, I've been able to join that up again, and I'm actually helping. We're practicing a lot more now, getting prepared to do more shows when COVID ends, and it's incredibly exciting because the family dinner is there. I mean, about Mike Honore, and everybody. I think any interview you hear from people from Baton Rouge, they'll talk about Mike, and there's a lot of other people, especially in the family dinner, like Brian Gorey. He's a medical doctor who just spends his free time doing improv, and so that blows my mind of how excellent he is at being funny, and then also how smart he is, and how apparently his bedside manner. I mean, I've heard he's a great doctor also. So almost the Ken Jeong thing where he did improv and was a doctor at the same time. So
Indeed, and Mike Honore is such an awesome dude. I got to interview him, and and everyone kept on saying, well, you got to listen to Splendid Afternoon. Like every comic that's like was in Baton Rouge or even in the Gulf Coast, are like, you got to listen to Splendid Afternoon. And I did, and it's one of my favorite comedy records. It's just fantastic.
I love it as well. It's a lot of fun. I didn't get to. Vaughn said he got to be there for the recording. I didn't. I did get to see him workshop it when I was actually starting out in comedy. So I got to see all the workshop and all the build up. So it was fun to see those jokes start somewhere and then take hold, and then have Mike do what he does on it.
Absolutely, indeed. And speaking of starting in comedy, before we went on air, you started at 17 and you quit and restarted many a times, and that's what comedy does to you. You start and you quit, and it's like a makeup to breakup kind of relationship. And so,
Oh yeah,
and what
it's
were those early
it's
years like
really,
for you?
yeah. Early years. So I start when I was a kid. I don't know. I don't know why. And I don't know how it started, but I always had the blue collar guys. But it was before they even had blue collar comedy tour, because I remember getting excited about that coming together because I liked Bill Engvall and Jeff Foxworthy so much. So when I was 5 or 6, I just picked up their CDs some way and I just started listening to them on repeat. And then at baseball tournaments, you're driving all over the country. And so I burned them out. I mean, I burned them to the point where you couldn't even play them anymore. And I knew all the jokes and all the everything about those guys. And then when I was a senior in high school, I actually got held up at gunpoint at a Smoothie King that I was working at. And I had to miss school the next day, only for senior pictures. So I missed school for a totally different reason than the fact that I got robbed. I just happened to get robbed, and the next day I was gone. And the school called and asked what happened, and my mom decided to just say that, oh, he got robbed and he was traumatized, but she just didn't want me to have to use like an unexcused absence. They have these weird things in school. We have excused absences and unexcused, and they mean different things. So she just said that. And then when I got back to school, they thought that I had been traumatized, and it was a private Catholic school. So they asked me how Jesus got me through it. And I didn't know what to say. And they asked me to talk in front of one of my religion classes and say how Jesus helped me. And so I told them about how I got robbed. And at the end of it, the teacher was crying, laughing, and so was everyone else in the class. And I decided to try stand-up the next week. And I did it, and it was great. And I thought, this is the easiest thing on earth. I don't know how everyone's not famous. You guys are all stupid. I'm awesome. And then I tried it the very next week. And I said, oh, I got new material. I'm the smartest person on earth, right? Like I just crushed it last week. Clearly, I am just a man of the Lord in comedy. Like it's right here. I got it in my brain, out gold. And I bombed. I went up the second time. I bombed so hard. I stopped halfway through a sentence and didn't drop the mic. I slowly put the mic down on the stage and just walked off and didn't try again for 3 years because I was mortified at how bad it could go. I just thought I was so sure that I was the funniest person on earth. I was sure of it. And then when I found out that I wasn't, so soon after, I quit. And then I actually didn't start again until I had fully hurt myself from doing baseball. So when I left Shreveport and come back to Louisiana, I would say I probably truly started when I was 20. But I definitely went up there when I was 17 and did my first ever act, which did go well. But after that, I don't want to peak at the first time, but I still don't remember as many laughs as I got that very first time. Maybe it was just because it was so fresh, you know? It was like the first time you do heroin. It just was like, whoo, that rush. And then after, you're like, I just need more. I remember it was awesome, but now it just feels weird. But that was the early years. And I tried out for the family dinner and didn't make it the first time. And actually, old Mike Honore, because I started watching when I was 15. And Mike put his arm around me and he said, hey, man, we love that you come to the shows. It's just not – you're just not what we're looking for right now, that sort of thing. And as him being my local comedy hero, it crushed me. And he was very nice about it. It wasn't anything bad, you know. It was just the defeat of I tried out and didn't make it, you know. And so I was determined to join the family dinner, and now I'm in it and probably the worst person in it. But you know, I'm there. You know, even the guy who's last in NASCAR still is a NASCAR driver. So. Because those guys are really funny. I love those guys.
Indeed. Most definitely. We just got our first comment on here, and it says, this guy is awesome. Ha! And it's by Prey in Austin, so he might be a friend of yours. I'm not quite sure.
Oh, yeah.
So it's pretty awesome.
My buddy Austin, yeah, he's out in Montana. He's actually the man who convinced me to move to Colorado in the first place because he lived there. We actually, I bowled in college also. So I forgot to mention that. And I went to a bowling tournament in Las Vegas and realized that I also wasn't very good at bowling compared to other bowlers. And neither was Austin. So he and I became friends as being the two worst collegiate bowlers almost in this tournament. And we went out to the club and we ended up almost meeting Carly Rae Jepsen. And then we got thrown out of a bar for no particular reason. and we were fast friends ever since. So there's more to that story, but there's nothing like a bond of getting physically lifted. I mean, I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6'3", almost 230 pounds, and I had two guys just lift me up over their head like it was nothing. And so during those moments of, I guess you could say, weakness, you realize how fragile your life is. So you make new friends with those who are suffering with you. Yeah.
Carly is like one of only the few that I would give my number to and ask her to call me. Maybe, I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Look, it was right when that song came out. There was so much. We heard that she was over there. I didn't know what she looked like. I had no clue, because I mean, you hear the song, but they don't. You know, I hadn't gone into an Abercrombie and Fitch where they used to play the music videos while you were in there. I hadn't been there a while, so I didn't know what she looked like. I just heard whisperings that she was in the same bar. So
awesome. And when you mentioned the Abercrombie and Fitch, I automatically thought of Summer Girls by LFO, and I'm like, I'm just totally aging myself.
I missed that song. I missed that song because it was the kind of rap that I could get behind, because it was just naming normal things, and I was like, I can name normal stuff. I mean, they made me feel like I could be a rapper. You know what I mean? It was these guys can do it. I think we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the comment, Austin. And you can jump in whenever you want, and I'll interact with us, and we'll interact with you, and all that good stuff, and bring up some more old memories from bowling and Carly Rae Jepsen and stuff. So.
Oh yeah, we actually just got back from Florida together, and it was to celebrate his 30th birthday, and we had quite the time out there. I got absolutely demolished by like some 10-year-old girl for no particular. I told her that I liked her hat, and I said to her, I just was walking past. She had a sweet unicorn hat on. She had the unicorn. It was all light up, and I was just having a great time. And I said, "Hey, little girl, I like your hat." And all she did was she just did this, and then she just dropped it and just looked at me. I mean, here, like I got a hat right here. I'll play out what she did. I said, "Hey, little girl, I like your hat," and she goes. And then just stared at me. And I was like, okay, well, now I'm on a list, because clearly that little girl had been kidnapped before, and the last time someone kidnapped her, they told her about the hats. That was the key.
Oh goodness.
I mean, so we've had some good times recently, but he's Austin runs his own stuff. He actually has a thing. Mental Ghosts is his company that he runs, so it talks about mental illness. And in today's time, being okay with that, you know, I think a lot of people. More recently, we talk about mental health in a more positive light, more accepting light than I think we did whenever you and I were kids. So I think it really helps out. And so that's what he's trying to run. So we'll actually be doing a story soon for him, because I promised him I would, because I was diagnosed bipolar a couple years ago. So it's your struggle. And I think a lot of my stand-up stories come from me when I was going through, I guess, manic times, because it makes sense to me. But then in the moment, but then later when I look back, it's like, that was insane and you shouldn't have done that. Now I know. It's almost like being your own parent. Every so often, like the child escapes. You know how they say, like, keep your inner child? Well, for me, when bipolar's acting up, it's like I just open up some doors and the child is just, that's what takes hold for a little bit. So it's just like, oh, everything that's this. Yes, I want this. I want that. I don't care if it's terrible. It's like a kid in a candy store of life, and just grabs everything, all the badness and goodness. Don't worry. It's fun and bad at the same time. It's not all the worst thing on earth, but it's definitely has developed my journey, I think you could say.
Indeed. And when you brought up your trip to Florida with Austin, he was giving 3 laughing, crying emojis. So it must have been a wild trip for sure. And what part of Florida did you go visit?
We went to Panama City Beach. So we were out there, and they had kind of just opened up as well. It was fun. He's very good at ping pong. I'm also not very good at ping. I've learned the older I get that the confidence that I had was purely right here. And the things that I thought I was very good at, I just get absolutely crushed all the time. And things like, oh, I used to be really good at this. And it's like, I don't think I ever was really good at this. I just think I was
Indeed, and be sure to check out Austin's show about and thank you for plugging in his show, and so that everyone can tune into that and as well. And And so you
Oh
you
yeah.
spoke of family dinner a couple times throughout the interview so far, and you've been part of them since on and off and on since 2011, and
Yep.
you've been watching them since 2005. And how's the experience so far with family dinner on yours for you?
I love it. I mean, I love improv. I love the family dinner. I don't think there is a group of funnier people. I mean, I know that I'm part of it, and let me exclude myself. If I was still just a viewer, I would still view these guys as some of the funniest guys I've ever encountered. I mean, like I said, you've got Brian Gorey, who's a medical doctor. You have Mike Honore, who's known locally, I mean, very well known. We have David Vitrano, who he is a nurse. I mean, he's in the medical industry as well. He has a family. I mean, he's hilarious. You have Jim Teague, who runs blood at a hospital. I mean, he runs blood donations, blood drives. You have Robert Rao, who Robert kept hold of kind of the local Baton Rouge comedy scene for about a decade. I mean, he kind of ran the major rooms and kept hold of the family dinner and made sure that happened. I mean, and we have Vaughn Vayon in the group, and Vaughn is, I heard his interview last week that he's only been in it for 2 years, but he's very naturally funny. I mean, he jumps into scenes and he does kind of the perfect, he's a perfect character. I mean, he can do characters so well, and I enjoy doing it. He and I write jokes together. We write improv, or we write sketches together. We're trying to come up with comedy shows. So I don't have anything but awesome things to say about Vaughn and all the family dinner. I mean, they're so much fun. They started from a group from LSU called We're Making It Up As We Go Along, and they were an LSU class. Then those guys were friends together, and they started performing at Perks Coffee House in Baton Rouge. If anybody listening remembers to Perks, that doesn't exist anymore. And then when I tried to join the family dinner, it was at that place, which had a cool following. And then when I finally did get to join the family dinner, we were performing at a laser tag arena in a side room, and it was the dark ages for sure. We had a rule in the show where if there were more performers than audience members, we would not perform, and that happened about 65% of the time, where it would be 1 to 2 people. But I mean, it was a lot of practice, a lot of fun, and then we got to move to the Manship Theater, and it's great. I mean, the family dinner is an institution, and they create some of the funniest people. And the people who are in the family dinner and who have been in the family dinner, it's a lot of great people. So I really love those guys. I've got the greatest memories with them.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad I got to meet you and Mike and Robert and Vaughn and stuff, and looking forward to meeting the rest of the family and the family dinner. And
Oh, that
speaking
would
of
be
the
awesome if you could.
absolutely, and speaking of the Manship Theater, we're raising funds from with this episode. And why did you choose the Manship Theater?
Yeah, so the Manship is a nonprofit, and their goal is for the arts, for local arts. So they are able to host shows just like us, the family dinner. They're able to have a venue for us to be able to go that's dedicated to comedy, so people can go and they understand it's not, bars and restaurants are great for shows, don't get me wrong, but to be able to have that its own venue, its own space. And so they also do like children's theater stuff as well. They do singer-songwriter series for amateur singer-songwriters, so they can have a space where they can bring their family and friends and show original music if they don't have a band, or if they do have a band. Sometimes they also will, in the singer-songwriter series, people will come up there and play the band for them. So it's just great. I mean, I love the arts. I think we need to help support that. And during COVID, they got completely shut down. I mean, they were on death's door, and luckily they switched to doing outdoor wedding receptions, so they were able to hold up a little bit, but they're still very strapped. And so I'd love to see it continue. I mean, selfishly, but also for anyone younger coming through, or anyone older, or anybody who wants to represent themselves or project themselves creatively, to have an avenue and a place to perform, I think is very important. So
awesome. When I head back home to Colorado, or when I started that 12-city thing that I have planned for next year, I'll definitely stop by the Manship Theater, because that sounds like a really cool venue. So.
Oh, absolutely. It's a great spot. It's a great spot. I highly recommend going.
Absolutely. And for those for this next portion of the show is the questions I wanted to ask. I ask every single comedian, and I wanted to remind everyone back at home, and these are the questions for you. So Seth, remind the audience again, what inspired you to perform stand-up comedy?
So getting picked on. I think the first time to perform stand-up was getting robbed at a Smoothie King. Was like when I told that story to my religion class, and I saw everyone laughing. I mean, that that got me going. But in personal life, I think for storytelling, it came from my family. So my cousin Blake and my Aunt Donna are very good at telling stories. And we used to get together once a month as a family and just do a big family get together. And after dinner, everybody sits down at the table. And my Aunt Donna used to kind of run stuff. So people would tell stories, and if they didn't like it, she's like, next person, you get a chance. So every so often you get a chance. And as a kid, I wanted to be, I wanted to hold the totem pole or whatever so I could speak in the circle. And the first few thousand times I think I tried, it was crickets. And I had a very honest family. They do oh, you're so cute, but go play somewhere else. We're going to try to really, get this table roaring. So after a while, I just kept trying, and I brought stuff to literally to the table. I brought stuff to the table, and one time it stuck. And it felt great. I mean, having that attention, I remember Vaughn listening to his from last week, and he said once you get that pause where everyone kind of has that moment, that's when you get addicted to it. I mean, that's when it hits the bloodstream. So I think that's really where it started from.
Indeed, most definitely. And what was it feeling like when you first performed stand-up?
It was great. I remember the deafening silence at first after they announced my name, and then I held onto the mic because I hadn't spoken yet. So in my head, it was like, I haven't done comedy yet. I'm just holding a microphone. And I saw some of my friends, and I saw one of my really good buddies, Zach. He was sitting up front, and he just he was so ready to hear this. I mean, he even had heard this story probably 4 or 5 times already. But when I saw his face get excited, it was all right. I want to see everybody this excited. I wanted to see if I could spread that. And so that was fun the first time getting up there.
Most definitely, indeed. And what are your favorite comedy specials and comedy record albums?
Anything John Mulaney. I mean, John Mulaney, I got to see him do the Live from Broadway one. I got to see him perform that actually in Denver for one of my birthdays. New in Town is awesome. I love Bill Burr. I forget the name of it, but the newest special that he did that was on Netflix where he was in Europe and he did it. That was the first time in my life I've ever had to pause a comedy special. And I just had to pause. Did you watch that? Have you seen it?
Believe it or not, I don't have Netflix or any of those streaming websites.
Oh, no.
I know. It's just like, I just feel like it's just like throwing money away. And I'm like, I'm just happy with YouTube.
I get what. There might be some stuff on YouTube but he has this joke about the invention of airbags. So he talks about, he said at first the airbags, it was just the driver. He said, so you get in a wreck and you're, and he's like, the guy's, he pulls off the airbag and he's looking around and he's like, oh, I'm alive. And then he looks around and he's like, oh, my family. And they're all just bloodied up. And he's like, why would they just save me? Why? So it's just the thought process of at the time, the only person who survived, from the safety thing just has to deal with the fact that the rest of his family is just dead and just crushed by him, which is a gross thought to have, but it's that line of where he's saying it but not saying it. He was able to give you that picture of what happened with just his body and just kind of those few words, so you're able to describe that. So I love him. Jim Gaffigan is another comedian that I love a lot in terms of doing things. Mark Norman, actually out of Louisiana as well. I just got to see him live, and he's so funny. He's got that. He's like a dirty Jerry Seinfeld. It's kind of just the way I can describe. I think of him because he has this voice. We're having a good time here. This is what we're gonna do, And he goes through that way, and then he just comes with the dirty punch at the end. So it's a little different than Jerry. He's like the adult Jerry. But those are some of the ones I really like a lot. And John Mulaney to me is just, I almost feel like I'm his little brother because we had a very similar upbringing in terms of how he describes his life. So it's a lot of fun to see someone like you who's made it to such a level. And so it gives you hope that one day you can make, you know what I mean? You're like, oh yeah, that guy, he's way funnier. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, I can, if I really try, if I really put my nose to the grindstone, I can make something. So we'll see. Who do you like, Surratt?
I love Neil Brennan. When I had the trial for Netflix, I love Three Mics. That was like my go-to.
Yeah. That was kind of like a 3-act thing, right? Kind of because he talked different segments of his life up on different things, and you talked about you're having a one-man show, right? That's going to be a 3-act.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be fantastic. And so that's like another inspiration, but his was like more intense. Like, I love like the way that he had the one-liners, I believe, and his personal stories
Yeah.
and his jokes, and it was just good stuff. And I'm like, man, and just to see him from like, evolve from Chappelle's show
He was a
and all
head
that
writer on
stuff.
the show, wasn't he? One of the head writers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed. And I love Dave Chappelle's stand up, and
Oh yeah.
like the one person that really got me into stand up was John Leguizamo. And
Okay.
when he was doing his storytelling in his one-man shows, and those really like how he like switched into characters, and they just blew me away. And I loved like House of Buggin' and stuff, and so just all his film works have been amazing, like from
Wasn't
Spawn.
he Luigi? John Leguizamo? Way
Yeah,
back in the day? Yeah, that was how I got introduced to him.
indeed. um I absolutely love the guy, and Austin's asking for my Venmo, but I'll I don't know it offhand, so I'll have to tell you later. I don't so, but thank you so much for offering the donation. That's pretty awesome of you, Austin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Indeed. And but yeah, those are like my favorites. I mean, of course, there's Richard Pryor and his roast that he had, and my very first comedy show was my roast, so I definitely have to give props to Richard Pryor and Don Rickles and stuff. And
Oh yeah, the
all that.
roast was fun, man. I mean, you got to see Greg Giraldo back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, whenever before he died. His those roasts were. I love that guy. He was because he was very he was a lawyer who decided he didn't want to do law anymore, and so he decided to do stand up. It's the ultimate. I'm just going to do what I feel like I want to do sort of attitude, and I really like that. It's like I was a lawyer making all this stuff, but screw it. I'm gonna go see what this comedy thing's about.
Right? It's so true. Like I had a high paying job when I lived in LA, and I was so depressed. And all the jobs that didn't pay me were where I was at my happiest. And I don't
Right.
know why. It was just I'd much rather have happiness over money, like
Oh,
any day of the week. So
100%, 100%. I mean, if I could pay for stuff and hugs, I would be so rich.
same here. Like when I went back home to Colorado, well, my parents are from Cambodia, and when I went there, it's like they were poor, but they were smiling and happy, and I'm like,
Yeah,
this doesn't make any sense. But then when I finally like was an adult, and I went back by myself, and I sat down with my other family members, like, okay, I get it. Like
yeah.
I can get money. I'm happy with enough money to get by. But if and
Right.
that's all I ever want, and then fill the rest with happiness, and I'm good.
Oh, absolutely. Look,
Yeah.
that's where it's at. I like that. I like to hear that. That's awesome.
Indeed. And Seth, some of those folks that we mentioned were in film and TV, and I want to know what your favorite sitcom sketches and comedy films are.
Oh, my favorite show ever is How I Met Your Mother. I watched it on repeat probably 200 or 300 times. I mean, honestly, I watch it all the time when I'm working or when I'm doing anything, mainly because of the callbacks. So when I started watching it later, I started watching it on network TV, like season 7 or 8. And my brother was telling me they had all these callbacks, and I was just thinking they might have had them from a couple seasons back, whatever. But from the very first episode, they were putting stuff in to get called back later, and so I really liked that. And then I forget the girl whose name. She was one of the head writers. She went to head write Rabia Rashid, Atypical. She wrote that afterward, it's on Netflix, so you might not have seen it, but it's a show. It's quirky, funny sort of thing, and I really like that as well. In terms of cartoons and stuff, Bob's Burgers and F is for Family. F is for Family is a Bill Burr show, and it's semi-biographical in his life. And so he plays the character of his dad, which is funny because I always just think about they have a lot of gratuitous sex scenes with him and his wife. And I'm like, you're playing the voice of your dad making love to your mom. That's got to be weird in the studio booth. I'm just saying that's got to be a little off. But so you said sitcoms, TV shows, movies. Back to the Future, my favorite movie. By and large, love Back to the Future. I actually watched Back to the Future 3 yesterday, just to keep it fresh in the memory. And then what else did you ask? Was there anything else?
Sketch shows.
Sketch shows. So SNL. I mean, I watch it all. I go back and watch old seasons, old episodes. I really love SNL. I mean, I know it's the main one, but that's what I saw and got up to. Now there was the one. I haven't seen Mr. Show. I know I just was reading an interview with Bob Odenkirk, and he was talking about Mr. Show and all that. So I really want to go back because I really like Bob Odenkirk. He does so much funny stuff. And David Cross is really funny from Arrested Development. I mean, I know him from Arrested Development, but he was on Mr. Show. I think it was Bob Odenkirk and David Cross, right? Were the two main guys on Mr. Show. Yep. So I haven't got a chance to see that yet. So, but SNL was either when John Mulaney was head writing or back before that, whenever it was the Will Ferrell days. Those were my favorite days.
Absolutely, indeed. And if you can go on tour with any comedian locally and internationally known, which comedians would you like to go on tour with?
Oh, locally, I mean, I would go with Mike. I mean, that would just be. We've gone around and done. So we've done improv. We've done murder mysteries together, and that is interesting. But he's a lot of fun on and off the stage, so that would be who I would go with for anybody. Now, if there was someone mainstream, I would probably go Mulaney. I would think just because just what I could soak in. You know, if I wanted to be a quarterback, even if you don't like him, I would go hang out with Tom Brady because he clearly knows the position. And I love John Mulaney, and I think he clearly knows the position of being a hilarious comedian. So I would just to try to soak it in. It's like, how do you, when you walk past somebody, how does that become a joke that quick with that much exposition? Because it just seems like it's how he talks, just with how much he's able to produce. So it's mind-boggling, some people.
Indeed, most definitely. And if you ever need help booking shows in Florida, I'll do my very best to book a Florida tour with you and Mike, and I would pay to go see that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Yep, and I've interviewed like everyone from the Panhandle to Miami, so I know everybody. So I'll definitely try my best to help you out.
That would be great. I would really appreciate that.
Indeed. Most definitely. Austin jumped in with the comments. He goes, "That's why I'm trying to give away my money. Doesn't make me happy. What's your opinion? Just went to a comedy concert this Friday. Would rather do a pun or a political joke. Both seem dry. And for me, you go first.
No, you go first. You go first.
I definitely go with a pun because political jokes divide a room, and I don't want to ever divide the audience.
I agree.
Yeah,
I would say that any day. And I think well-placed puns are the funniest thing, and I think non-well-placed puns are the most like it's the kryptonite. I think that a pun is such a you just got to do it right. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things where it's like it's not making a grilled cheese. It's not making a peanut butter and jelly. Making a good pun is right there, because they have like the dad joke puns, and they have like those ones that really get you. And so I do like a well-placed pun, and I am anticipating being a dad one day. So I get to do both. I get to have just the dad puns, and I get to hopefully do some good ones too.
Indeed, most definitely. The master of puns to me is Rena Calm. I'm not sure if you had the chance to meet her yet, but she's amazing. She has a book full of puns, and our tours both intersected in Jacksonville. I did like a 14-show, 10-day tour back to back to back, and our shows just met at Rain Dogs in Jacksonville, and it was just such an amazing experience to just perform on their same bill as her and Mr. Swanson. So it was pretty rad. So
yeah,
it was fantastic.
That's awesome. So she does. I mean, most of her set is doing puns through, or she. Yeah. Okay.
I'll have to send you the link to her web store so you can pick up the book of puns, because she's really good at them. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, that'd be great.
Indeed. And if you can get roasted by 5 comedians, past and present, which comedians would you like to get roasted by? We talked about Greg Giraldo earlier.
Yes, I would love to get. I don't know if I would love to get roasted by him. I think I would love for him to tell me what he would say, but just not say it to anyone else, because I don't know if I would have the confidence. No, he's really funny. I would say Greg Giraldo. I would say Will Ferrell. I think I want to see what his characterization would be. Dave Chappelle, I think, would be fun. Let's see. Charlie Day now he's more of an actor, not necessarily a comedian, but I think that his would be a funny thing. And then let's see, number 5. Who would be my 5th person that I would get? Okay, let's see, a comedian. I would actually do Ron White. I would see what old Ron White would say, because he's pretty mean. Pretty mean.
Indeed. And where do you see your comedy journey in the next 5 years?
So we're going to be doing the open mic Wednesday nights at the station in Baton Rouge. So that's every single Wednesday, right about 8 o'clock. Vaughn and I co-host. Want to put a feature headline room in Baton Rouge as well. See if we can get that going, and then do a tour. I mean, do stuff. I hadn't really done a real kind of tour in about 5 or 6 years because I had really quit for a long time. So just getting back into it. So I mean, that's the major thing. And I think in 5 years, if talk shows and Tonight shows are still doing, I do want to get a 5-minute spot. I think that's. I don't have to be the most famous. I don't really care about that, but I do want to. To me, that's a sort of validation of get to go up there and get to be on that public stage, because it also, you can't have your jokes be too dirty. You know what I mean? It's not just so whatever. It's more family friendly. So I try to be able to get my family and friends to be able to come out for the most part. There are definitely some sets where it's like, please don't come. I don't want to do this. I don't want you to see this. These are my thoughts, but you're my family. And there's just some weird divide that you don't want to cross certain times.
Most definitely. I think I'm too filthy for late night TV because, like, my pals gave me this nickname that I'm the cleanest, dirtiest comic in Daytona Beach, because I'll say all these really dirty things, but I won't say a curse word in my sets, and they're like,
"That's great, though. That is great." I wanted to. I didn't. I do apologize. I didn't look up any sets that you've got, but I do want to, and especially now that you said that, because that, to me, that's the funniest. To me, being able to say dirty things without saying the dirty thing. It's just you're a human thesaurus, and I love you for it. You're able to weave.
I'll have to send you the one that I performed at the Relapse Theater where Roy Scovel did his Netflix special.
Okay.
And it was at the Relapse Theater, and it was like completely sold out, and like there's people sitting on the ground and people standing in the back because it was so full before the whole pandemic thing. And it was like when I was going on tour, and they were making grilled cheese in the corner, and like the laughs took so long to pass me by that I had to like wait. And usually I perform in front of 4 people at midnight in Daytona Beach, and the laughs are instant. But this one I had to wait. And the laughs were so intense that it kept on pushing me backwards. I've never felt that energy before, and it was nuts. So I'll send you that link, and it's like one of my best performances. So
that's awesome. It's awesome that you have that captured as well. You know what I mean? To be able to have that and remember that and push that off, because that's a good representation of yourself too.
Most definitely. And hopefully it makes you laugh, and if it does, give it a thumbs up and a comment, and it'll totally mean the world to me. So.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I can't wait. I really can't. That's gonna be awesome.
Indeed. And so you've performed improv and you've written sketches, and which other forms of comedy would you venture off into, like directing and acting and producing, etc.?
I like hosting, honestly. I think my favorite thing to do is host. So hosting an improv show and doing improv, there's something to be said about having to, because you're not doing comedy, you do have to get in a mindset, but you can also, when you're doing stand-up, you have lines that you're trying to, certain jokes, certain whatever that you've got to do. And it's almost like when you get into improv, it's like you're just walking into a different world. And you're like, look, I'm about to be part of this world, and whatever anyone says is about to become real. And you've got to and everyone suspends their disbelief. Generally, the audience suspends their disbelief with you. And so that's a lot of fun. And I love it. Improv to me has my heart more than stand-up. I love stand-up. Now, don't get me wrong, but stand-up, like we've talked about, is an abusive relationship. It's so mentally taxing. It hurts and it's lovely all at the same time. And I think that's why you get addicted to it. I mean, I think that's why certain people, you can't walk away from it, because there is that thing that draws you back. And it's great. But improv is always, because if you're not doing great, someone else can hopefully pick you up, and you can kind of do this collaboration. And then, all of humanity wants to connect, right? As humans, we want to connect. And I think we've seen that a lot during the pandemic. And I think improv does a great job of showing this connection, because a lot of it is mental. I mean, a lot of it is I'm pretending something, and we are adults pretending, and there are other adults who are watching us pretend and enjoying it and really becoming part of the room. I mean, a live improv show is something that, same with live comedy. Going to a live show and watching a set is very different, and it's very the same with improv. And when you get into that room, when you're in that collective moment, it's a lot of fun. So I really do. I kind of like hosting an improv, and hosting the stand-up shows is a lot of fun. When you're going back and forth, and you get to talk between every comedian, and you get to meet everybody. And hosting helps you keep dialed into the show too. So sometimes if you're just performing, you're a lot more focused on what you're about to say and everything, so you kind of miss what other people are saying, and you don't get as much. But when you're hosting, you're like, oh, I'm trying to make sure that this guy's doing well, and everything's going right. So I like that it keeps me engaged in what's going on.
Most definitely. And Seth, what is your favorite joke a comic has written?
I think, like I said, I really think it's that Bill Burr joke. I just it's kept me laughing so much, and I was watching that set with friends, and so I'll have my buddy, he'll just call me, and I answer the phone, he goes, "My family," and then like I just lose it. So if a joke can get you to do something that quick, it's good. Also, I will say, what's his name? John Renazizi. He was on The League, the TV show. Do you remember that show? About fantasy football. I think Steve Renazizi. Holy crap. Steve Renazizi has a joke. I've seen him live 3 different times in Denver, actually. I used to go to Comedy Works all the time. And so I got to see him, and he has a joke it's on YouTube, so you can watch it. It's The Pizza Delivery Guy, or How I Found My Drug Dealer is what it's called. And he starts off at the very beginning by just saying, I moved from California to New York, and so I had to switch from I was sick all the time, so then I had to get a drug dealer because you couldn't get it legally. And so he starts it off and he goes, and here's how I found my guy. But then he basically resets right then in the story, and he's like, my wife and I are trying to order dinner. And so he goes all the way through, and I won't ruin it for you because I want you to go, but he gives you the seed, and then he very quickly changes it, so you feel like that's gone, and then he just brings it right back again in about 5 minutes, and it's very well done. But I think between those 2 jokes, those are my favorite jokes that I remember.
Awesome. Yeah, you have. I've been to Comedy Works downtown once, but I've never been to the one on the south side. But the one time that I did go to Comedy Works, it was for Thick Skin, and it happened like every Monday, like back in the past, and it was such a great show. And I was lucky enough to get drawn out of the bucket, and I got to do 4 minutes there. But it was the most.
Was Thick Skin like a roasting show or something like that, or?
Yeah, it was Yep,
Okay.
like Mike Stanley and Greg Bumhauer, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, was the hosts, but Mike Stanley was gone on tour, but Greg was hosting, and Greg and his guest host was roasting me, my best friend, and I the whole night, and it was fantastic because he knew who I was because I have a festival there called Sureth Fest that we're celebrating 8 years, and so I have it on me, and I didn't know that we were supposed to go to the green room, so my best friend and I just ate so many roast jokes from our seats throughout the entire show, and they were just like grilling us, and Greg was so cool, like he had to pick one more slot because it was like there's 3 professional comics and 3 amateurs from the bucket.
Oh, yeah.
And so he drew my name out, but he puts his hand on the person next to me, and he goes, does anyone want to see this guy perform stand-up? And they were like, it was quiet. And I think that one person brought his parents along to the show, and I felt so bad because 4 minutes at Comedy Works, that's 4 minutes, like it's legendary. Yeah. And then he moved it. I was like second in line, and so the crowd just went nuts. And he goes, nope, not yet. And so he put his hand over the third person, and it was quiet. And so he goes, all right, Seth, you got 4 minutes, make him laugh. And I was just stumbling over my words because I was so excited because I never expected to perform on Comedy Works stage.
Yeah.
But, man, it was just such a legendary stage to perform on. And hopefully when this whole thing opens up, hopefully the location downtown is open because that stage is just heaven on earth.
It is. I mean, it's like a basement that they just move stuff around to be able to get you in. And I actually got on it's the DTC, the Denver Tech Center one. I got to see Dave Chappelle. It was 2 weeks before he filmed the Netflix special. So he wanted to workshop it. So he had flown up to Vail to have like a weekend with his family. And then he came down. And one of my buddies was the general manager, a guy named Travis. He was the GM of the one in DTC. And he called me and said, hey, we get to invite like 100 people to come to this. Like he's doing it. He's workshopping it. So he did an hour on stage. And then he asked people to heckle him. He goes, I just want you to. He pulled out, he had smoked 9 blunts already, which is incredible in an hour. I don't know how anyone is physically moving at that point. And then he also had his own tequila brand, I think, or something at the time. And he had been drinking that. And he just asked people to, literally, ask me about this, ask me about whatever. And he just did it. And he said, if y'all can make me laugh more than I can, whatever. And so no one did, and he went through, and someone got arrested in the middle of it, which was hilarious. But he didn't even stop. He was roasting the cops as they were coming in there, arresting this other dude who was acting up, and the cops were even laughing. It's like, are you serious? You're like, you're roasting the cops who are arresting somebody right now? Like, that's just it was that kind of legendary status.
Indeed, Dave Chappelle is definitely a god, so it's pretty awesome. And so,
yeah.
Austin asked, "I love roasts. Do you think celebrities will ever roast each other again, or is that a canceled?"
I don't know, man. I mean, I think right now in general we're at a time in the country where people I don't want to say like sensitivity because I don't want to bring it to make it like a bad thing, but I think we're at a fever pitch, and I think coronavirus and people being at home, I think that furthered it. And so I think that I don't want to say we're at a tipping. It's just it's very high. It's very heightened. I think people's sensitivities right now are heightened, and I think we've seen that go through years in general, where for a while people get too much, and then we start to pull back and go, oh, okay, things are all right. Because there was, 30, 40 years between the roasts that were the classic roast back in the day and then Comedy Central bringing roasts back. I think that Comedy Central did it at a time that they thought that was more accepting of those sort of jokes, and I think we'll get back there again. I don't think that that's going to be dead forever. I think there might be different things. I mean, you might have to say different types of jokes than you did before, because I think before you might have been much more on the nose. You know what I mean? And I think that just how you say in terms of your jokes, you're the dirtiest clean comedian. I think that we're going to see more of that coming up, where you're not saying the words anymore. You're talking, around it, sort of thing. But I don't think that. What about you?
I hope that whoever has a show on Comedy Central now, they should get roasted by like their peers. Like, for example, Trevor Noah. I want to see him get roasted, but I want to see like Roy Wood Jr. on the panel, and the cast of that. And because roasting celebrities and you're not really friends with them is just kind of like, like I'd much rather see their friends roasting them. I want to see Dave Chappelle get roasted by like Donald Rawlings and like Neil Brennan one time, and that'd be a beautiful roast. Like, it's just that, and it'd be amazing.
You're talking more of because some of those roasts that were in the earlier 2000s, they would have like half the friends and then half professional roasters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about doing more of where it's just all more close and personal sort of thing.
Yeah, and like if Trey Parker and Matt Stone would have their folks roast them, and it'd be just it'd be a beautiful thing for Comedy Central to keep it all in the family, and so that way they don't have to pay those celebrities that much. And even though it'd be fun to poke fun at like Donald Trump or like Justin Bieber or whoever, it would just be cool to see like just keep it in the family, like a family dinner style. So
hey, look, I think that's a good approach. I like that.
Indeed, and if I'll send you my roast too. It's an hour long, but it's an hour long that you'll just laugh because it's just everyone goes for my throat, and I'm like the nicest guy like you'll probably ever meet, and so you'd probably just like, wow, they're so mean to you, but then I get them back in the end, and it's fantastic. So.
Yeah, that's good. Austin said, could roast work over Zoom? I don't think a roast could work over Zoom. I think it's also, I mean, I try to do a couple stand-ups over Zoom. It gets difficult just because it's hard to see what the audience is laughing at and what is not going well. Because I think in everyone's set, you understand you have like a joke, and then if it's going well, you can improv off of it, or if you had more to go with, you can be like, okay, I'll do more of this. Whether if it's not working, because if it's not working, you might really just sound mean or just sound weird.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily think a roast would work too well over Zoom. I mean, I know that we had, stand-up had to be done over Zoom. I mean, we tried some improv shows over Zoom. You did the best with what you could, but I think in general, most people in our thing, it's like a live performance. You definitely want it to have that live feeling.
Yep, and that energy is amazing. And a lot of times, like when like celebrities get roasted, they have to like pre-approve the jokes. Yeah. Whereas if it's like amongst your peers, like when I got roasted, I was like, say whatever you want. I won't get offended. We're all gonna laugh together, and we're gonna make it out alive anyhow. So it's fantastic. But and what experience would you like your audience to take with me after a set is over, Seth?
I want you to leave feeling better about yourself. I try to do mostly jokes about how dumb I am or the stupid things that I thought of, because comedy to me is a safe haven. Like I said, earlier we talked about I got picked on a lot as a kid. So comedy was an outlet to feel safe. and I don't want, unless it's a roast, obviously, that's the nature of the roast. But in general, I try not to pick people out of the crowd or anything like that. I don't try to put anything down. I want you to understand that everyone goes, we're all a lot more collectively similar than we are different, and I think we all have a lot of the similar fears and anxieties. And again, I think COVID really helped bring those out. And a lot of people who you thought, in my own personal life, I think several of my family members and friends who I would consider less emotional started showing more emotions, because you just kind of felt, everybody started to feel isolated and alone and everything. So you want to feel good. I mean, I really want you to feel good. I want you to laugh, and I want you to be like, okay, literally everyone has these things, and I feel better. And then also that you could do comedy. I think everyone could. I think everyone, to a certain degree, has 10 minutes of a joke or a story or whatever. So I want you to understand that we're here. We're best friends. You are my best friend when you're in the audience. That's what I really want you to leave with, because I want you to feel like you're my best friend. I want you to feel like I just came here and was like, dude, I just did the dumbest thing. Or I remember when I was 9 years old. I don't know why I'm telling you this. I love you as a person. I probably shouldn't, but I'm gonna tell you anyway, because you're my people and I love you. That's how I want you to feel whenever I'm doing comedy. So I want you to leave like we're close friends.
Absolutely. Indeed. And Seth, this is the stand-up speakeasy. It's the prohibition, the roaring 20s. Yeah, you gotta know someone to know someone. It's a secret society of stand-up comics. And so with that being said, Seth, which comics out of Baton Rouge or all of Louisiana would you like to see, or it could be nationwide, would you like to see on a future episode of the stand-up speakeasy?
Well, so in terms of like Baton Rouge people who I like, there's a guy, so he's done it a while, named Rusty Elkins. He's a little bit older guy. He's come back. I had to convince him over LinkedIn, no less. He wasn't even responding to my text at the time. So I found him on LinkedIn and started messaging him. And I was like, you need to come back out because you're so funny. And recently he just got back. My girlfriend actually got to see a show, and oh, this is good. And she straight up was like, who was that guy? He's really funny. So Rusty, he's a really funny, really quirky guy. So a guy I met in Memphis who he helped me tremendously do comedy, Will Loden. So he was in Memphis. He's actually in Texas now. So he's a guy that I really enjoy. He's really funny. So I would say those two guys for your next two people. I would try to reach out to them. They're very funny guys. I love them to death.
Absolutely. I'll definitely reach out to those fine folks and see if I can get them on a future episode for sure. And so with that being said, please Delete Comedy on Facebook, follow Seth on Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat, donate to his Venmo, donate to the Manship Theater. And is there any final words you'd like to give out to the audience at home?
Thank you, Austin. I appreciate you watching. You've been great. To anybody else watching, thank you so much. Saret, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time and for getting to know me and for speaking with me. I look forward to watching your shows that you're going to send me. And I hope we can speak again one day. I hope we cross paths physically so I can give you one of those hugs that I'm so rich with.
Indeed. I'll embrace it.
I really don't have anything else to say. I mean, it's awesome that you're doing this. I think it's great. I so far got to watch Vaughn's, but I'm going to go back and watch some of the others because I saw that you had done Robert. You would talk to Jason Leonard and some other people. I highly recommend everybody go watch these. These are very funny people out of Baton Rouge, Lafayette area in Louisiana. So y'all go watch more Saret's interviews. Follow him. I mean, thank y'all so much.
And definitely check out Mike on Race too. We can't forget about Mike.
Yeah,
for sure. And
yeah,
I also got one more comic that inspired me a lot was Joe Coy.
Yeah.
I saw his show in Jacksonville, and I met him backstage, and he grabbed my phone and he did this really quick intro, 13-second intro, a video of us, and it got me into 4 festivals and winning almost 6 of the 5 U.S. time zones, and I'm like, that's insane, Joe. That's just from one Asian comic to another. That just meant the world to me, and he just unlocked so many doors for me. And so I got to give a shout out to Joe Coy for doing that, and out of the kindness of his heart, and that was just awesome. So I didn't want to forget about Joe.
Please don't forget that, man. Hey, help is help, and all comedians got to help each other. We are a community together. And I think that it's a lot of fun to be a part of this comedy community that goes around because it's all a bunch of people who have a lot of feelings who get to put them out on stage and really try. And I love everybody for it.
Absolutely, and I thank you so much, Seth, for being my guest, and I look forward to the day that we do get to meet up and perform stand up together and all that good stuff, and
Absolutely.
it'd be awesome to just go on tour to see what Baton Rouge is like because that's one city that I plan on visiting, and I hear a lot of great things about it. So
Oh yeah, look, hey, come out. Like I said, we got the guys. So we started getting some guys from New Orleans who run shows too. So when you want to come through, we got a lot of shows at least that we can batch you together for in a good week's time. Get you some good work coming through and get you some good food. So,
awesome. Looking forward to the food for sure. And shout out to Austin for being an awesome guest and interacting with us in the chat. And shout out to Seth and the whole Baton Rouge scene, the whole Louisiana scene, everyone that I've met so far, everyone in the Gulf Coast and the whole country. Just you
yeah,
guys have been fantastic, and I look forward to yeah performing as I mentioned with you. And for everyone else, be safe, take care of each other, and be well. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Stand Up Speakeasy.
later. Have
Awesome.
a good one.
Thank you so much, Seth, for being my guest.